Okay, let's jump into Chapter 2, Group Development. I'm going to use this PowerPoint as my focus and scroll through. And I'm also going to grab some ideas and highlights from the book too as we go along, so bear with me. Okay, learning objectives. These are the same learning objectives listed on page 15 in the book. Eastern versus Western view of groups. Western cultures routinely view groups as collections of individuals, and Eastern cultures have long recognized groups as distinct collectives rather than a collection of distinct individuals. So the I versus we perspective, there's not a right or a wrong way, but shifting from the I to the we gives a group a different perspective, and it also, if you look at it as a whole, you can get more productivity, better outcomes, etc. But the group, it has to be a good group. It has to develop in the correct manner, and we'll talk about group development here shortly. So groups overall, page 16 mentions the social brain, where the neurophysiological conduit for perceiving, processing, and mirroring the emotions and behaviors of others is a real thing, and that has a potential to trigger neuronal activity. So if you're in a group and things are going well, your brain could release some dopamine because you're being effective, you're enjoying that time. Where on the opposite end, if it's a bad experience, you're gonna, walk away with some anger, maybe sadness because you didn't get your objectives met, that type of thing. That is a real thing when it comes to the social brain. And collective resonance is when it's described like, when you meet a person, or you're sitting in a group and you just have this rhythm and the energy, everything's just moving quite easily. That's what that is referring to. And on the opposite end of that, you can have energy that's not controlled, or rhythm that's not intuitive, and that is described as collective folly. That is group dysfunction. So that those two are just opposite ends of the spectrum when it comes to groups. Levels of system and group life. We have members, we have group, and we have environment to reflect on. Table 2.1 on page 18 does an excellent job of that. I'm going to also read, I highlighted this. Actually, that's the next couple slides. I'll wait. All right, so levels of systems. So here's the member. The table on page 2.1 it's just the way this table is listed. I am looking for the description. I can't find it. But these are just great questions to consider for each part of a group, the member of the group or the environment. So member behavior. How does each member behave in the group? Their feelings. How do each of the members feel about working in the group? And then if we move on, I'm going to flip over to the next slide. The group. So the top of the chart for group, norms and rules. What are the explicit tacit rules for the behavior in the group? What are the roles? Who's the authority? How do we communicate? And environment is very important also. And again, that table is on page 18. I don't want to keep reading it to you. Okay, so seen and unseen aspects. So let me flip the page back over in the book, because Bion, Wilfred Bion, was the first person to research and identify patterns within groups. So he said that there's a conscious group called the work group and an unconscious group called the basic assumption group. And as your PowerPoint says there, the work group focus on the tasks and responsibilities, and the basic assumption groups, there can be anxieties and inherent struggle with individual versus collective identity, etc. Your book continues to talk about that on page 18. You can read that. I'm trying to flip the... Hang on. Okay, there we go. Stages of group development. All right, so that is found. Tuckman's description of the stages is found on page 21. I'm not going to read all that to you, but look at the difference in the task issues, structure, and social things. One thing I have highlighted from page 20, at the bottom is that all groups go through these stages of group development. There's no way to get around it. You can't make it go faster. You can't skip a stage. It is what it is with the developments of group. Okay, an integrated model of group development. So Whelan researched this, and that Susan Whelan built upon Tuckman's model. So she's not taking all the credit for this. But there is the bottom of page 22. It talks about in the early stages, most of the work is done under the leader's direction. Succeeding stages, members take increasingly more responsibility. In stage 3 and 4, the responsibility for work is evenly distributed, etc. Figure 2.2, key developmental issues of group life. That explains the dependency and inclusion, then the counter-dependency and conflict, trust, etc., just like your slide says. Page 23 goes into each one of these stages a little bit better. So with dependency and inclusion, members rely on the leader and powerful group members to provide direction. So you're still kind of trying to figure out, well, what do I do? I've never done this before maybe, or I'm new to this group. How and what should I do and when? And then the counterdependency, stage two, let me flip the page. Oh, there's also a nice table on pages 24 and 25. So counterdependency conflict is inevitable, and the goals for this stage are to develop a unified set of goals, values, and operation procedures, striking a balance between respect and mediating individual needs of the group. The trust and structure, the primary goal for that stage is to solidify positive relationships and benefit the productivity of the group. Work and productivity at this point, they should be resilient enough to remain cohesive while encouraging task-related conflicts. All right, group productivity. Page 28 in your book. It usually takes 6 months for a group to achieve to that final stage of the developmental level. That's normal. It just takes time to build that cohesiveness and figure one another out, come to the common goal, etc. And the last two items here, group size. It talks about members of larger groups perceive their groups to be more competitive, less cohesive, more argumentative, and less satisfying. Found that small groups tend to be more productive than larger. So the most productive groups, the numbers are 3 to 8. If you get 9 or more, the research is showing, and the book has got it stated, that there's less productivity. And that's it. And that was... Please let me know if you have any questions. Going back and forth between the book and the PowerPoint, just a little challenging. I'll get it. I'll get the hang of it. But please let me know as you read this chapter. Highlight, take notes, take everything you can away from it, and let me know if you have any questions. And that's it. Hope you have a good week.